news, essential, important, and optional, helping you navigate through an avalanche of news that happen every day. Please follow along at gaiinsights.com/articles, and please share your opinions, your thoughts as we discuss these. Today, we have Ankaj, John, Paul, and a special guest, Ashish Bhatia, who has very deep development experience in the AI space. So he provides really cool feedback and insights. Thank you, Ashish, for joining.
Thanks, Luda. Pleasure.
All right, let's start with the first article. Ankaj, please.
Sure, thanks, Luda. So the first one that we have for today comes from Mistral, and Mistral has launched Devstral.
Yes, claiming to be the best coding platform of them all. John, what did you think about this one?
Yeah, I was between optional and important on this. The performance I think is quite high, as you can see here, in terms of the ability for the software agents to help in creation. They're really much better than even some of the biggest models. And this whole notion of software development as a place to automate and to augment, it's much more complicated than simply doing individual tasks. And this and some other Devstral and some other solutions now have really looked at how do they manage environment, state, try to understand the goals of the programmer, and present this in such a way that it's something better than Jira, just simply what's been done by whom when. So and software development is such an important thing for at least three reasons. One is it's a huge part of the economy. Second is that it has a lot to do with new products and services. And third, software just continues to be more and more into everything. So this is a special category of productivity. It's not like call centers or something like that. So that's what normally I would have given it an optional as a product announcement, but it's very important area. So I was headed toward important.
Yeah, they also, this is open source. You can download it today and play with it, and it fits on a little bit deeper Mac, or a little bit more memory Mac, and it's local, right? So it can access data in the like.
Yeah, you need a 32 gig Mac to use it.
Yeah. So what do you think about this, Ashish?
Interesting model. It's a smaller model, as you guys mentioned, right? I mean, even the comparison, if you look at the comparison, it is for a mini Ike model, which is the smaller model. Look how they have not compared it with Codex or any of the larger kind of models and coding agents. So while it's interesting, I'm not sure deploying a coding model locally. I have not dropped the scenario for that. Because I've always thought of you want the biggest, the baddest model for coding, because you want it to have that profound view of what you're trying to implement, have a deep understanding of your GitHub, and then be able to make those changes. So for those reasons, in my mind, this was kind of an optional news.
Okay. We're going optional. Paul, what do you think?
Well, I think first and foremost, they moved off their naming convention. This should be La Dev Mistral, because they were doing a lot of chat before. So it's happy to see them move off that. This is definitely optional. I mean, it's a product announcement. I do think what's interesting, though, is that we certainly seen in the last 2 years that the frontier models have been the intergalactic battle. And clearly, we now have intergalactic battle on all these code editing tools, both from startups and AWS and Microsoft, and everyone leaning into it. So this battle is just starting, and I think we're just going to see tremendous innovation and spend on, because like a lot of these markets, it will float down to 2 or 3 tools 2 or 3 years from now, and those will have really, really powerful impact. And that's why the big guys and some of the startups are not going to let it go easily.
No, right. But the landscape of that coding environments is really changing. That people are rethinking of how we code, and having a capability on your laptop is an important part of it for sure, and distributed environment also. So we'll see how it goes, but optional for now. All right.
I'm not sure what the AI leader would do with this. I mean, what he forwarded to his tech team, which is already using one, so optional. We beat this optional up here. Now we're back to. I'm feeling back home, Luda, where we beat up all the optionals severely.
Well, no, we are putting it. We're not beating up. We're putting it in view of other developments in the field, and that is very important.
Fair enough.
The other thing to kind of think through, just to kind of beat this a little bit more, is think about until last year, right? It was all about the largest models. That was the intergalactic kind of fight. First quarter was all about reasoning models, and if you see this quarter, I mean, we see so many announcements around coding models, and the battle is there right now somehow.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. We have a lot of coding stuff happening.
One last thing, Luda, on this, Sanju on our research team put a blog post on a GAI Insights. I think she identified 50 different code editing tools. So it really is a very, very crowded space.
Yeah, it is a crowded space, but it is an evolving space, and that what this fight that we're observing, right, is crystallizing what's next to come, and so this is good. Optional for now. Let's proceed, Ankash, please.
The next one is a research paper which talks about a reward reasoning model.
Yeah, this is coming from Microsoft and a couple of Chinese universities. A pretty profound paper, I thought, long one, but talking about actually rethinking the rewards and giving it some time to self-improve, and only then providing an answer. So what did you think about this, Ashish? It's right in your alley. You like to think about these things and have a number of methods you've experimented with.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Luda. I mean, very interesting paper. I actually forwarded to a bunch of friends last night. The reason it's important is the reward model is either handcrafted or then it's an AI reward model, right? But what they have added in this scenario is they've created a reasoning reward model. But what it does is it uses your test time compute for determining the reward, right? Whether it's the reward is 1 or -1, whatnot, right? So which kind of makes RL even more interesting. Now you can bring that human reasoning in the reward modeling part, right? So for that reason, it's very interesting. It's very dense. I want to actually more deep dive on this paper later today to kind of get to the nitty-gritties of it. From an AI leader perspective, I don't know if you're not developing your own model, this might be too much of information, but is an interesting trend to kind of watch. And for that reason, I was kind of in the middle of maybe optional, maybe important, but again, trending optional, I would say, from utility for the leader perspective.
Okay. John, what did you think?
Yeah, I was between important and essential in this thing. I mean, you've got an amazing amount of performance improvement, and you look at the average accuracy there, and the models it's competing with. I think the reason this is so important is that and we'll see later today, we've got this whole incredible amount of power consumption that's coming from the larger models. And then also, I believe that democratization of AI is going to largely ride on the back of mobile phones. And so when you can have this kind of performance improvement, you're really taking the large and medium-sized models and starting to move them onto the phone easily. And so I think that's a really important thing. The other thing is that I don't think that there's enough emphasis in the economic discussion of the learning system and what's happening to unit economics. That is, the cost per whatever you're doing, as you have a very, very good learning function. So if you have a good learning function, you can drive down your unit cost economics, which means tremendous benefit for the customer and usually for the shareholder as well. So I think that the learning dimension and the improvement dimension on these models is a critical economic driver. And for that, both in terms of cost, but also in terms of benefit. So for that reason, I was going to give it, let's go all the way to essential here.
Yeah, I agree with you that the figuring out the rewarding function and according to a specific metric is a critical capability. However, this paper, as Ashish was talking about, is quite deep and dense, so it is not an essential reading the other than the message, right? And they introduce these reward reasoning models and provide an open source downloadable body of knowledge. So for post training and tightening these rewards, this is actually, Ashish, very useful for AI leaders. So I was in an important camp. Paul, what do you think?
Luda, just before we head there, can I just say one thing? I was having dinner earlier this week with a representative of a very large fund that goes everything from small, early stage all the way through leverage buyouts. And one of the things that he noted, and we're having a dinner with a number of leaders in businesses, and one of the things he noted was that the difference between the leading companies and the companies that are lagging is that the leading companies, when he talks to their CIOs and their executives, they actually have an understanding of what the technology is doing and what the unit economics are. And so down to things like which products you're using and why and what's happening on a cost basis. So I hear you about, it getting to, I think the leading AI leaders are going to get into the details, is what I'm saying.
Yes, and this is one of the examples, but I'm just arguing it's important rather than essential. But Paul, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to highlight John's thing because I think part of that CIO role, John, is they're moving away from just budget custodian, and satisfying the line to be an integral part of the digitization of cognitive intelligence, which is, massively important and competitive differentiation. And so few actually think like that. So just highlighting that. This particular article I had as optional. It is really important, deep technical thing, but I was on the optional side.
Okay. All right, we'll cut the difference. Important it is, thanks. Sorry, John, not essential this time. Let's proceed, please.
The next one comes from OpenAI, and they have released new tools and features in their responses API.
Yes, this is interesting. There's lots of also on the coding side. It's really for developers. The central feature is introducing a remote NCP service support, some advancement in image generation, allowing code interpretation, so you can actually debug much better, and the like. So this is a slew of upgrades, if you will, with the central feature of new remote MCP service support. I thought it was optional. It's in the weeds. I think it's important that OpenAI improves this, integrates MCP for agent development capabilities, but I don't think it's important for the leaders. What did you think about this, Ashish?
I was optional as well for similar reasons. A couple of important things that you underlined was remote MCP. MCP was like you have to download that MCP server and then work with it, which is kind of side loading of unknown kind of package, and it's risky, but remote MCP kind of adds the level of kind of safety. Most important thing for me was the asynchronous behavior, which we've been asking for a long time. Like, okay, for these long running tasks, we want asynchronicity so that we can kind of quickly respond, and then when the task completes, we can come back with the result and things like that. It feels incremental. Response API is already there. They're adding kind of new capabilities to it, making better and all of that stuff. So for that reason, important for developers to kind of definitely look at it. But again, for leaders, I think it's an optional.
Okay. John, agree. Paul, any comments?
Agree.
John?
Optional.
Optional. Okay, optional it is. Let's proceed, Ankash.
Okay, this one is a report from Poe, which talks about Spring 2025 AI model usage trends.
Yeah, Poe is a product of Quora. I just looked it up. And so Quora and Poe is enabling a capability for many. It's essentially a LLM AI tool switching platform. So they enable users to use those LLMs and tools and create their own apps and monetize them. So they have 430 million users. I didn't realize. I just looked it up. So this is quite a big platform. John, what did you think about this data dive of Poe? I
John,
can
you-
see you, John.
Sorry, I was going to give this an essential. I mean, I think it really gives people, AI leaders, a fantastic set of data on what models are being used, what the trends are. When you hear things like DeepSeek, you saw DeepSeek go from 0 to 7% of volume down to 3%. It tells you when it's a flash in the pan. I think this is essential for an AI leader to be able to make a case inside and outside the organization, to look at his or her, vendor landscape, and to really, in this incredibly volatile environment, have a little bit of radar on what's actually going on for usage. Great sample, beautifully put together, I think, in terms of the clarity, what the leading models are in each kind of category, whether it's video or, visual or text. So I rate this essential, and easy to consume, which, I'm fine giving essential things that aren't, but this is both.
Okay. Proposal essential. Ashish, what did you think?
I agree with John on the fact that easily consumable data. It's again very kind of succinctly done in that sense. On the text, if you scroll up, Ankaj, just on the very top visual, very interesting visual. I was surprised to see. I was not surprised to see OpenAI again as the top text model, but I was surprised to see Gemini kind of further down, so low. I would have expected Gemini to be much higher. I mean, if not beyond Claude, but actually kind of matching Claude. On the reasoning side, I was like really taken aback. You see, OpenAI pioneered reasoning models, and it is kind of third and fourth behind DeepSeek. So that was very surprising. Similarly, on the image gen model, I'd imagine Google image gen and OpenAI's would be neck to neck. I mean, I see that difference as significant, and Google is so close to then Flux, which was kind of a little surprising for me as well. So again, I'm not saying don't trust the data. I mean, obviously the data is there and the users are there. For me, this was kind of between optional and important. I will always say, hey, don't trust these kind of public comparisons. Use your own evals. What works for you, that's important. So lower backpack important maybe, but that's how I was thinking about it.
Yeah, and I'm also, as I looked at this, I said, well, that's interesting. But if you are a leader already committed to a platform set of tools, having this in front of you is important, but I don't know what's the utility of that information. Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not familiar enough with Poe's data user here, so I don't know how skewed it is or represented it is. To me, this is just another benchmark. So, there's already 30 different benchmarks. I don't think, as we talked before, the benchmark rating or this rating should have that much impact into your model choice versus Shisha's point is, find something that actually fits and evaluate yourself. So I had it as optional.
Paul, what other benchmarks give us the volume data like this does?
But do you trust this, John? How are they getting volume data from
That's a different issue. All I'm saying is there's not a bunch of them that do this.
I agree, but that's how I'm so skeptical of the volume data here. I mean, I don't hear people using this. I didn't spend time really understanding. I mean, Poe's used by a handful of people here. It's probably representative, but I think it's probably more skewed to B2C than B2B. So.
Yeah, very, very hard to know because it is a big sample, 430 million users. It's a lot, right? So it is not shabby, but can you trust it? And what would you do?
I don't understand as a Poe user how it's knowing that what my usage of other models are.
Oh, they're monitoring it. You are a developer going on their platform and using the various tools, and so they know it for sure. They know the calls. They know the history of what you're doing. exactly?
False.
Yeah. So this is actual usage.
Well, it's just I'm just highlighting having 400 million people use a Poe platform, and we've never talked about in the last year and a half of news is surprising.
That's interesting, right? Okay. By the power of the chalk, we will put it as an important for all of these things, because John is right. This data is important. We don't know whether this is a trustworthy. Poe kind of emerged as a statistical platform that they want to put in front of people. So let's watch it and just flag it to the executives that it's there. So for them to take a look. How about that? Okay? Okay. All right. Let's proceed, Ankash.
Wait, Luda, when you get the chalk, you don't ask the peons if it's okay or not. You just chalk the answer. You got to
Chalk
learn
the
from
answer,
John. You
important.
talk and move on.
Move on. Right.
Okay, the next one comes from MIT Tech Review, and it talks about the math on AI's energy footprint.
Yes, a longish paper that was trying to get data about carbon and usage and to estimate the impact. And the result is they didn't get much of data. So it's all based on assumptions. Ashish, what did you think?
Um, Very interesting paper, very interesting topic. I was at Babson College sustainability panel discussion almost a month and a half ago, talking about the same topic, right? And the MIT review kind of talks about the fact that it's so hard to understand what's the carbon footprint of let's say an image that you're generating or a deep reasoning query that you might be doing or an operator operation, because it's unlike kind of driving a car where again there's been this kind of way of measuring carbon footprint or for years, right? And again, if you're traveling through an airplane, there's a way to kind of assign carbon credits and all of that. But with AI, it's unclear, and the data is not openly kind of disclosed by the AI companies, so it's just very hard to measure it. And again, I think their meta point is there needs to be more transparency. We need to build out the grid a little bit more because the energy demands are soaring, and so on and so forth. So was interesting conversation, important conversation, but wasn't a lot of takeaway in that sense for me. So I was kind of important on this, but other than that, wouldn't wasn't a lot for me to take away.
Yeah, I was on. Okay, so John, what did you think?
Yeah, optional, important, incredibly important area. A few interesting observations. I just thought the author could have done a lot better job in terms of, aggregating data in a way that, would make sense. I understand it's hard to get data in this area because the model providers are so secretive. But for me, I'm on the fence between optional and important.
Okay, I was totally optional because it's a hugely important topic, but it was a rambling paper and didn't get much of the takeaway. I scrolled down and said, "Well, what do you want me to do?" It was I really was unimpressed. Paul, what did you think?
The world's full of hugely important topics that are outside the job description of AI leaders, and this is one of them.
All right, optional it is. Let's proceed.
Okay, the last one comes from Langchain, and it's a case study about how Webtoon Entertainment built agentic workflows with LangGraph to scale story understanding.
Yes,
So
Andrash,
basically, Webtoon. Sure, Luda. So basically, Webtoon, they partnered with LangChain to develop a RAG chatbot that now answers fan questions using content from web comics and creator Q&As. I was between optional and important for this one. So while it uses a vision language model, there is some agentic flow and there's a 70% reduction in the effort. Still, not a lot coming out of this case study, and also it's not useful in other sort of scenarios.
Okay. Ashish, what did you think?
I was optional too, but again, few interesting takeaways were like video understanding. There's so much video content out there, right? That again, large labs have figured out how to kind of harness that. But for everybody else, right, video understanding is important because again, who's going to sit and kind of analyze all of that video data, and if you can parse it through an agentic workflow and make sense of it, it's interesting from that standpoint. But again, just amount of details and impact, I thought was like optional. Sure, great case study, good to look at it. If you're in this video understanding kind of domain, makes sense for you to kind of read it. Otherwise, optional.
Well, let me say, I was thinking important. Let me just put a case for it. It is the case, it's a chatbot, but it is to develop new capabilities based on the mass of data that you already have. So this company is building essentially new products for business 1, business 2, business 3, as in this graph. If Ankash, you can put it up, the co-agentic workflows. So they're taking all of this mass of stuff, right? And they are using it. So they captured it. And they're using it for creating new revenue sources from it. It's a very critical aspect, and enabling LangChain to understand and have memory about semantic understanding of those specific cases and businesses they want to generate is an important capability that leaders would need. So I was thinking, actually, it is a great applicability to other domains and other verticals. So that's why I was more important. What did you think, John?
Yeah, I thought it was optional. This is an interesting implementation of something that I think a number of people are trying to get at. Webtoon's good domain and more generalizable, but I thought this one was an optional case study.
Okay, Paul, optional.
Optional. I mean, I was at the MIT CIO conference on Tuesday, and I mean, these so many companies are just trying to get their arms around text. One of the questions are like, how far back do we go in getting text data for reg? Do we go back 3 years, 5 years? What do we do when there's 18 different versions of the report here? So, I think there's such a very pragmatic hurdle of getting around text, and so few companies are even ready for this. So optional. Okay,
optionalities. Let's proceed to the scorecard. Any announcements, thoughts?
Just reminding everyone, we will not have Learning Lab this Monday. It's a U.S. holiday, Memorial Day.
Are we going to have news, Paul?
I'm available for news. That's a good question. Luda, you want to punt on news? No news then. Okay.
I think we should not, because people need a break from us.
All right, no news on Monday. And for those of you in the New England area, I'm going to be speaking at a YPO event on June the 2nd in Boston, so Waltham. So if you're there, hope to see you there.
Okay, so for today, we have 2 importance, and the rest is optional. So, and the most important is the new tools and features from OpenAI. All right, sounds good. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining. Ashish, thanks for joining. Ram and other folks, thanks for joining, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Subscribe and like on YouTube.
Yes, please.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ashish.
Hey, guys.